The air was thick with the weight of impending snow, and the forest surrounding the small Wisconsin cabin seemed unnaturally quiet. The crunch of dead leaves beneath footsteps echoed louder than it should, as if the woods themselves held their breath. Rachel adjusted her scarf, the chill biting harder than expected for early December. Her dog, Max, a golden retriever with a usually fearless demeanor, tugged uneasily at his leash, his ears pinned back and his gaze fixed on the darkening trees. "Easy, Max," Rachel whispered, though her own heart was thudding harder than she cared to admit. She'd heard the rumors from the locals, stories of an unearthly creature that prowled these woods at night. They called it the Dogman, a beast neither fully wolf nor human. Of course, she didn't believe in such nonsense. Yet standing here now, the skeletal branches clawing at the twilight sky, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. A sudden rustle to her right made her spin around, her flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. Nothing. Just trees and shadows that swayed in the cold breeze. Max growled low in his throat, his hackles rising. Rachel tightened her grip on his leash. "Come on, it's just the wind," she murmured, though her voice trembled. She wasn't sure if she was trying to reassure Max or herself. As they continued down the trail, the silence grew oppressive. Even the distant calls of owls or the scurry of small animals were absent. It was as if the forest itself had been muted. The sensation of being followed grew stronger, an invisible weight pressing against Rachel's back. She resisted the urge to glance over her shoulder, knowing it would only make her fear worse. Then came the smell, a foul, musky odor, like wet fur and decaying leaves. Max whimpered, something he hadn't done since he was a puppy, and tried to pull her back toward the cabin. But Rachel hesitated, her curiosity outweighing her fear. Against her better judgment, she shone the flashlight into the woods. For a moment, there was nothing, just the beam illuminating the underbrush and tall barren trees. And then it moved. Two eyes, reflecting the light like molten gold, blinked back at her from the darkness. They were too high off the ground to belong to any ordinary animal, and their gaze felt disturbingly human. The outline of a massive figure emerged from the shadows, hunched yet powerful, its elongated limbs giving it a grotesque silhouette. Rachel's breath caught in her throat. The stories, the warnings, it couldn't be real, could it? The creature stepped forward, its movement unnervingly silent despite its size. In the fleeting moment of clarity, Rachel saw its face, matted fur, a long snout dripping with something she didn't want to identify, and jagged teeth that gleamed as it snarled. Max barked, a desperate, panicked sound, snapping Rachel out of her frozen state. She didn't wait to see what would happen next. "Run!" she shouted, letting go of Max's leash. He bolted toward the cabin, and Rachel followed, her legs burning as she pushed herself to move faster than she ever thought possible. Behind her, the sound of branches snapping and heavy footsteps gave chase. The thing was fast, too fast. Rachel didn't dare look back, the primal instinct to survive driving her forward. The cabin came into view, its yellow porch light a beacon of safety. Max was already at the door, barking furiously. Rachel stumbled up the steps, fumbling with her keys as the growls behind her grew louder, closer. She could feel it, feel the weight of its presence bearing down on her. Just as she slammed the door shut and locked it, something heavy collided with the wood, shaking the entire cabin. For a moment, there was only silence. Then came the scratching, a slow, deliberate sound of claws dragging against the door. Rachel backed away, clutching Max, who was trembling at her side. The scratching stopped, replaced by a low, guttural growl that reverberated through the walls. And then, nothing. sat in the corner of the room with Max, her flashlight trained on the door. When dawn finally broke, she dared to peek outside. The snow had started to fall, covering the ground in a pristine white blanket. But near the cabin's porch were massive footprints, each one larger than her own, leading back into